Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. And you are on the Enlightened, no, I'm sorry, the Intuitive Light podcast and show for the Enlightened Entrepreneur. And I am so grateful to have you here. My name is Jacqueline Rodriguez. I'm the owner of Enlightened Styles, your holistic hair and makeup salon in Warrenton, Virginia. And I'm also your intuitive healing business coach. And I am here today because my passion is really to help all my clients and each one of you women entrepreneurs to step outside of your fear, start loving and trusting yourself so that you can co-create a life and a business that you've always wanted and that you deserve. And I want it to come easy. I want to highlight who I know, and I'm so lucky to know so many amazing women entrepreneurs who have just done wonderful things in their world, and they've been able to get over fears. They've been able to, start co-creating the life that they love. And I want them to talk to you and just show how they've been able to go through things and been able to make a change in their lives for the better. So I have Rebecca on today, and I am so excited to have her on. I've known her for a few years now, I think, and she is an amazing, she has a book, and I'm going to let her tell you all about that. But without further ado, here is Rebecca.
Hi, Jacqueline. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited as well, a little bit nervous, but again, that comes and goes with the territory.
It really does. And I mean, you see, I want this to be very real. I mess up and it's okay because this is how it is. Like, I personally don't want to edit it. I want this to be shown as it, even if we have those fears and we're nervous about things or that we mess up, it's okay because it doesn't hold us back from doing what we truly are meant to do and what we're here to do, right? Because you have a story about how you wrote your first book, right?
I do. Yeah, I really do. It still boggles my mind that just a couple of months ago, I realized a dream of being able to be a self-published author. And it took so long to get here because there was so much fear wrapped around not being good enough, not telling my story, holding on to something for all of these different reasons around fear I just finally had to get to that place where I had to let go and just let whatever happened happen. And this is a little bit of the background. It was back in 2013. I decided to go back to school for integrative nutrition. So I got a degree as a health coach. And it was right around the time where our daughters were still pretty small. And we wanted to instill in them some very healthy eating habits and healthy living habits. And that was the whole impetus to go back to school and learn really about holistic nutrition. And along the way, my husband and I coined this term called "Why Not Broccoli?" Because we wanted our girls to eat their greens and get good nutrition. And all of a sudden, I had this idea of, oh my gosh, that would be such a cool book. And immediately I had this vision of what the main character would look like. And I started thinking of all of these really cool ideas that could be brought together to create a children's book. And I had this brown leather journal that I kept with me day in and day out. When I was on the road traveling for work, it went with me. It was always on my nightstand. And it had so little information in it because I had this absolute fear of something. And it took about 5 years to finally unlock that fear and realize what was holding me back. But once that fear was unlocked, all of a sudden, it was just like the waterfall started to fall over the dam. And within several months, I had completely self-published and am now happy to call myself an author, which feels really good.
That is amazing. I know so many people who have that same type of story where we hold ourselves back from doing something that we want and that we so badly want to accomplish. But the fear
Yeah.
sets in. Tell me, what was the fear that was holding you back for all this time?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jacqueline. There was a lot of fear. There was the fear of not being good enough. There was the fear of I'm not a natural born writer. How good can this book possibly be? There was the fear of feeling like I had to know how to do everything myself, how to use the publishing platform, how to find an illustrator. And I knew none of this. I had this concept in me that I was so excited about, and I could see this book come to life. But this fear was paralyzing enough to not even let me get these words down on paper that existed up here. I could see the storyline, I could see the character. I could see how I wanted this book to materialize, but I just couldn't get it out. And it was interesting because last April, I was traveling for a business trip and was out at my company's headquarters out in Idaho. And I was participating in a train the trainer. And I was learning, excuse me, learning how to facilitate a new class that was going to be rolled out to our leaders. And during this train the trainer, we had an opportunity to practice one of the interventions we were going to be doing in the workshop. And it was all around the GROW model and using coaching. And we were all tired. This was about day 4 of the train the trainer. And somebody raised their hand in this workshop and said to the facilitator, we're all pretty darn tired right now. Instead of all of us practicing this activity, could we just see somebody demonstrate it? And the facilitator looked at me and said, well, Rebecca, since that was your idea, why don't you come on up to the front of the classroom and you can demonstrate this for us? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? And so I walked up to the front of the room, and there was another gentleman that was there that was a facilitator as well. And he's like, you know what, Rebecca? He's like, I've got a little bit of background in coaching. How about I come up to the front of the room and we can practice together? And I said, that would be great. So he pulls up his chair and I pull up my chair, and we're sitting in the front of the room, and he looks at me and he says, Rebecca, what would you like to be coached on today? And I just sat there for a minute thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know. And then I thought, you know what? Here's a perfect opportunity. Don't know where this is going to go. And I said, I do have this thing that I'd like to talk about and get your perspective on. And I said, I've had this idea for this children's book for 5 years now. And no matter what I do, I can't get it down on paper. And what was really interesting, Jacqueline, is he, over the course of 12 minutes, and I know it was 12 minutes because we were timing all of this, he asked me 4 questions. What are you afraid of? What's the worst thing that can happen? What's the best thing that can happen? And if you were to take one small step today and do something different, what would it be? And over the course of those 12 minutes, something just unlocked. And I felt inspired. I felt excited because I'd had all of this stuff rattling around for so long. And I never once ventured out and asked for help. I have always, talked to my family about, oh, this great idea, but it never went anywhere. Mm-hmm. And after that workshop, a friend came up to me and she said, I know somebody who has self-published a children's book. Let me put you in touch with her. And all of a sudden, all of these doors opened. And that same friend said, oh, by the way, have you ever heard of this app called Fiverr? Did you know that you can hire an illustrator? And I'm like, I had no idea. And so all of these things just started landing in my lap. But it was because I got over that fear of being able to articulate to somebody, it doesn't matter if I'm not good enough. It doesn't matter if I don't know what to do. It matters because this is my idea and I wanted to do something with it. And I finally had the courage to say to somebody, I don't know where to go from here and I don't know what to do. And between that day and December, which was just a couple months later, I am now a published author and was able to kind of open the door and let people in who had something to offer instead of thinking I had to do it all myself. And I think that was one of the biggest things that was holding me back is, again, that fear of not being good enough and the fear of not knowing what to do, instead of relying on all of these amazing people in my network that even if they hadn't published a book before, they probably knew somebody who could give me a tip or a piece of advice that helped me move along in my trajectory.
Oh my goodness. That story is so wonderful. And what I love about it is 5 years turned into a span of 12 minutes. And not only did you let the fears go to the side, but you know what the biggest thing you did? You made a decision.
Yeah.
You made a decision to take one little tiny step forward and just ask.
Yeah.
What would you do? You know,
Exactly.
and you got 4 questions that helped unlock all of that, because the fear doesn't just go away. It doesn't dissipate like that. No. But when you make the decision, and it's funny because I have another podcast with Jenny, and we were just talking about taking that leap of faith.
Yeah.
And it all starts with that one decision of just asking questions, like asking one question outside of just telling your friends and family about it, but how all the puzzle pieces start coming together. Because once you make that decision, you have not only let yourself know that this is something you really want to do, but you've also set that energy out into the world.
Yeah.
And you have let the universe, all the energies around you know, hey, this is something I really want.
Yeah.
So the beauty of it is you start co-creating. That's what I teach, is all co-creating your life.
Yeah.
And it all starts with that one decision. You'll have fears down the roads. I mean, we all do. Like, even me starting this podcast, I'm like, thinking about, okay, well, I can interview these, and there's so many people doing it. You get fears, and then all of a sudden I'm like, no, I love talking to people. And if nobody listens, nobody listens. I mean, it really is just for me, because I absolutely know that this is where I'm supposed to be. And you knew that you had this in you.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful story, and creating that tribe. And if, like, you had people that were able to help you along the way, and for the people who are listening, if you don't, there's so many places out there. There's so many resources, right?
It's unbelievable how many resources are out there. Yeah.
Yeah. And just making that decision and just being on the podcast today and listening to the episodes, you've made a decision to move past that. And that is why I've created the podcast, is because I want to be a part of those tribes for people. And I want to bring on amazing people like you, that you're able to move past that and start making those decisions. So now that you've done your first one, how do you feel?
I still feel like I'm floating on a cloud. I still feel like I can't believe I did this. I have friends that continually check in, just to see, how are you doing? And what are you doing to promote this? Are you thinking about your next book? And sometimes I have to remind myself that, oh my gosh, that's right. I did do this, and I have this ability now. And I've got 2 other ideas that have been percolating, for the past couple of months that I've started working on. But it's energizing. But for me personally, that's what I needed, Jacqueline, is I needed that coach to step in at that right moment. And I don't know if you've ever read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, but
I have. It's been a while, but I had. Yeah.
She has an amazing quote, and I'm going to butcher the quote. I guarantee that. But the premise of it is, when you have these ideas, the universe is sending you these ideas. It's incumbent upon you to grasp a hold of these ideas and do something with it. And if you don't, it's going to sail out into the universe, that's going to find somebody who's going to do it. And that also became a real push, because that quote started swirling around in my head, after I realized that I can do this, and I didn't want somebody else to take my idea. because it meant so much to me. And it was a personal connection back to my family as well. And the more I think about just really how easy it is once we overcome that fear, we have so much potential that we're able to do and to engage in. But we have to sometimes just simply ask for help and say, I don't know, but have that passion and the desire to know that when I get to that other side, I've got something really concrete right there that nobody can ever take away from me, because I put my heart, my blood, my sweat, and my tears into it. And while it took a heck of a long time to come to fruition, it did. And there's nothing that can stop me now. And it's a really empowering feeling to be able to say I did it.
And it all started because when you said that about the universe, I fully believe that the ideas that we get, especially the ones that won't leave you alone, because I mean, me personally, I get a ton of ideas. And sometimes, like a few days later, I'm like, that didn't really feel, it doesn't feel like, from my intuition, it doesn't feel right. But there's some that won't leave me alone. Like this podcast, for instance. There's a number of things I could have done, but this one kept circling back up. And a lot of people like start podcasts when their business has really, like, they have tens of thousands of people listening.
Right.
I don't, but this idea wouldn't leave me. And I 100% I believe to my core that the ideas we get are things that we are like destined to do. And it only takes that one first step, taking that one first step to it. And the universe is like, oh, we've already had this lined up for you. Like, here you go. Here's this step, this step, this step. Like it works together because you're meant to do it.
True.
And once you take that very first step, and it's one foot in front of the other, and then all of a sudden the fears dissipate a little bit. And you're able to really come up and find the tribe and the help that you needed. And that is, for me, makes such a huge difference, because it means that every single one of us, nothing can hold us back. Because the second the ideas happened in our brains, it's already meant to be laid out, and the universe is there to help you put it together, right? You're not doing it on your own.
Yep.
So I think that that's a beautiful story.
Yeah, it's amazing that when you do open up and let things in, you know, I got so stuck and hung up on, you know, even just, oh my gosh, what size of a book am I going to do? And I know nothing about, you know, pixelations and DPIs and all of this other terminology that I had to be able to convey through an app to an illustrator in Bangladesh, of all places. You know, because that was the perfect person for me, you know, to be able to do these illustrations. But all of a sudden, when I said, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. Next thing you know, I'm scrolling around on YouTube one day, and what drops into my lap is a lady over in Europe who had done about a 12.5-minute YouTube tutorial on how to self-publish in the exact size of book that I wanted to do. But not only how did you self-publish electronically, but how did you self-publish so you could have print version? And I just sat there and I stared at this YouTube video thinking, how is this even possible? That this just fell in my lap, and it's absolutely everything I needed. And I think that's been one of the big eye-opening moments, though, is when you let things in and when you let yourself just be. And when you say, I'm willing to take in people's advice and let whatever comes my way happen, it's going to happen. And it's fulfilling.
It's that letting go of control.
Yes. Which I have a hard time doing.
We all do. We all do. And it's been a number of years that I have worked on letting go of control. And that's why I have a team now. I have people helping me put all of the moving pieces of my businesses together, is because I'm able to let go of control. Right. But the biggest thing is not only letting go of control, but trusting that each and every step is meant for you to either learn something or push forward,
Yeah.
right?
Very
And
true.
each and every one of those steps, I just trust wholeheartedly that that's where I'm supposed to be at that moment, even if I can't see the very end result. And
Absolutely.
I still can't believe you had this idea for 5 years, and within a matter of 12 minutes you decided, and then
Yep.
within a matter of months. And what's funny about this is a lot of people look at you and be like, oh my gosh, you just became like an author in months. And you're like, no, this has been
No.
5 years in the making. We don't
Yep.
see that part of it.
Right.
So that story right there helps our viewers and our listeners to see that even if it's something you've been thinking of for 10 years, doesn't
Yeah,
mean it's too late. It can happen within a matter of 12 minutes, people. That's just so amazing.
it is. Yeah, it absolutely is. There's just so much that we have exposure to and so many thoughts that we have every single day. And when you find that thing that really matters to you, my advice to people is when you find something that matters, hold on to it and do something with it. And sometimes it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen within the week or within the month, or heck, with even in 5 years. But again, when you're passionate about something and you believe in something, do your due diligence. You need to do your research and figure out how is this going to work out, and what do I need to think about, and what are all of these what if scenarios. But don't give up on it. And sometimes, if for me, example, I got too caught up in my own head, and that was my biggest problem, is I didn't step out and simply ask for help. And had I asked for help 5 years earlier, I could have been a self-published author 5 years earlier. But the way I look at it now is I wouldn't have this story to tell. I wouldn't have something that now really matters as much as it does to me, because I feel so much more proud of my accomplishment, because it did take so long to get here, because there were a lot of lessons learned along the way, that hopefully the next time I do this, it's not, I'm not having to put in the, how do I say this right? The unnecessary energy that withheld me the last time, but it allows the creativity to flow easier this time because I now know a little bit more than what I did before.
And that is exactly why we do these things. Our stories is what makes us who we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago, you wouldn't have had this story, but I also feel like there is a divine timing for everything.
Yeah.
And the lessons that you learned along the way helped you step into the power that you now have of knowing, look at the things you can do in 12 minutes.
At 12 minutes, exactly. 12 minutes.
It's wonderful though. And that is powerful. Knowing that you can do that, knowing that no matter what now, you have that piece of the puzzle that if you can do it in 12 minutes and actually self-publish and put a whole book out in a few months,
Yeah,
imagine how quickly you can the next one.
exactly.
And any other projects or things that come to you are going to be a piece of cake after
Mm-hmm.
5 years of, percolating with this idea. And I think that we all have so much to learn from your story because it allows us to have that little bit of glimmer and that little bit of hope that even
Yeah,
if it has been a long time, doesn't mean that's the end of our story.
right.
It never is too late.
Exactly. It's never
I
too
love
late.
that.
And don't beat yourself up over it either.
Yeah.
I was thinking the other day, and I was kind of wallowing in the circumstance that we're all under, with the stay-at-home orders right now. And,
Mm-hmm.
just thinking of all of these, oh, I wish I was doing this or wish I was doing that. But then I caught myself and I'm thinking, okay, I still have my work. My family's at home with me right now. And now look at all of this time I have sitting right in front of me as well, that
Yeah.
I could now be putting that towards, developing my next story. And so I'm really trying hard these days to stop the fear, to stop the negative thoughts about the situation that we're in, and instead look at the opportunity that sits in front of me right now. And my dad, when I was growing up, he nicknamed me the worry wart because I worried about everything. You know, I was fearful of everything. And I do have to catch myself quite a bit, not worrying and not being fearful, and really trying to flip this situation that's right in front of us right now around to looking at the opportunity and to looking at the positive, to say, what can I be doing? What can I do different? And how can I have this silver lining, you know, when we step out of this current situation?
It's all about taking what's in front of you, because I've done a lot of training on this, and I have a few mentors. Jim Fortin is one where he always said, your outside circumstances do not define who you are. So right now, at the time of this recording, we are in the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
It's crazy out there. It can be scary. And there's a lot of things that we need to process through. And not being able to leave our homes has really shifted how we do things. But I look at it as such a blessing, because before we're running around so busy, we don't ever have time to even think straight. I mean, taking care of yourself and just getting enough sleep. Now we have time. And we've got to be gentle with ourselves, because I know, especially right now, like my first thought was, oh my gosh, I have to get this done and that done, and I have all this time now. And then I was like, wait. We've got to reel it back in, start from the inside, and start taking care of ourselves, allowing ourselves to feel, because there is so much going on and things are scary, not just having to stay home and business, but for the humanity, for people. And, you know, there's a lot going on. But if we reel it back in and we really start focusing on what's important, that's when we can start letting that spark come up and focus on the things like writing another book. When you feel creative and you feel inspired to do so, because you've allowed yourself that time to process and to think and to meditate on it and to really tap into what is the most important, because we could do a million things from home, right? I mean, I've already painted bathrooms and like I've done a bunch of stuff. But when we really focus on what's important, that's where the podcast came from. I mean, I had already had the idea for a long time, but I didn't have time. I've been gifted this time now, and it felt very, very apparent that this is what was needed and this is what I was supposed to do. So be gentle with yourself. We don't all have to be creative every second of the day just because we're home all day. But also allowing yourself to see what's next. And I think that that's a wonderful gift that we've been given right now.
It is.
With this
there's a saying that's been going around within my tribe too, and it's, you know, we can be very hard on ourselves during these times about thinking that we need to be, you know, the perfect parent, the perfect homeschooler, you know, all of this stuff just stacks up. And what does that do? It starts to create fear in us, and that fear of not being good enough, and that fear of not being able to deliver. And somebody said to me the other day something that really resonates, and I keep trying to tell everybody I can: give yourself some grace. Just give yourself some grace, because we're in a place now that is ripe with fear. We don't know what's going to happen. There's just so much uncertainty right now. How am I going to effectively homeschool my kids? How am I going to manage work? How am I going to put my thoughts into this new book that I want to write? And again, that fear starts creeping in. But if we just pause and if we take that breath and we just give ourselves a little grace to say, you know what, we're all in a very different place right now that we haven't been in. But just as you said, Jacqueline, we've been gifted time right now. We've been gifted the opportunity to be able to show up differently and think differently. And make a decision. Do I want to move forward with this project, regardless of what it is? Do I want to move forward with this business venture? We have some time now to be able to sit back and think, is this really what I want to do? And if it is, what's stopping me? What's preventing me from taking that next step? But give yourself a little bit of grace.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, grace, we've been gifted time,
Mm-hmm.
but we also have been gifted the, if you're open to it and you can let go some of the fear, we've been gifted this idea of perception around our normal day-to-day lives.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to continue on the way we were. We can't. We
Yeah.
physically can't. So how do we change that for the better? And what my hope is for everyone that you've been able to change your perception of how you can do things, what things you
Mm-hmm.
want to do, what really lights you up that you can do. And then when we do go back to a normal, whether it's a new normal or
Mm-hmm.
hope not the exact same normal, I hope that people can go forward with that and start changing their lives, not just this time that we've been given at home, but
Yeah.
really focusing in on what does make you feel more joyful,
Mm-hmm.
happier, what lifts your vibration so that you can help and change other people's lives. Your story changes people's lives. And what we do with that is so important right now to help lift all the other people in our tribe up and help them go to their very next step and show them love and support. And our kids, like, I am by no means meant to be a school teacher, and I've been graceful with myself. Look, I'm not going
Yeah.
to sit here and make sure that my kids are learning something every 2 seconds. You want to sleep in a little later, that's fine. You
Right.
got to take certain steps, certain things, and then the rest of the time enjoy, because they're stressed out too. They're
Exactly.
uncertain. So being graceful not only with yourself, but with your family and
Yeah.
with your clients and with people around you, because everybody's feeling it and
Mm-hmm.
taking it in a different way.
Yeah. You mentioned something that just sparked another thought too, is, when we talk about uncertainty and change, most people, we can handle change. Change happens, but where that fear starts to set in is with that uncertainty. And whether we're giving ourselves grace, our children's grace by letting them sleep in, by not being on top of them with schoolwork every day, I have to continually remind myself that this is a huge change for them. They're so used to being in school every day and gymnastics 20 hours a week and competitions and volleyball, and all of a sudden all of that is gone and their normal is gone. And so there's going to be fear creeping in for them too, and uncertainty. And I think that's one of the best things that I can do as a parent right now too, is again to give them a little bit of grace and say, you know what, if you want to sleep in today, it's okay. If you don't really feel like tackling, trigonometry or chemistry today, it's okay. You're going to be fine. But still also finding that happy balance where there can be a little bit of structure in their life, so they are doing something that keeps them active and engaged, and their minds aren't wandering everywhere as well. But it is an opportunity that sits in front of us to be able to do things differently.
I I actually have decided, well, with the kids, we haven't really gotten work from school yet.
Yeah.
They're still for Fauquier County. They haven't put it all out yet, but I think it comes out this Friday. So anyway, I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, you can't just sleep in all, like, you can't sleep all day. There needs to be some structure, but I'm allowing them to have some freedom to do things that they don't normally do.
Yeah.
I downloaded Adobe Photoshop and a
Uh-huh.
bunch of other stuff and got my son classes for Adobe, and he sat there for 8 hours in Photoshop, learning how to do Photoshop, learning how to do something that you may not learn that right away in school, and it's not trigonometry or history, the things,
Right.
but they're gaining valuable skills.
Absolutely.
And that's a life-changing thing for them, because it can open up all those new doors that all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden they can have different hobbies and different,
Yeah.
even for him, a business. He's 14. He could easily start a business of,
Hmm.
cropping pictures. For me, I told him, I'm like, I will hire you in a second because I need somebody to crop my pictures, upload my things. Like, there's just so much opportunity that we don't need to stifle not only ourselves,
Yeah.
but our children. And it's such an amazing gift that we've been given if we step out of that fear and
Yeah.
control.
Well, that's exactly it. And my youngest, so I've got two daughters, a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old. And my 11-year-old, when this all started, when school was canceled for the year, we sat down and we have time like we've never had before. And I said, "What would you like to do?" And she's like, I don't know. Maybe let's practice drawing." And that's not something her and I had ever done before. And so we created a shopping list at Michael's, and we got this.
Curbside pickup.
Yeah, exactly, the curbside pickup. So we have all the oils, the paints, the pencils, the pads of paper. And
Mhm.
every night, that's what we do. We spend about an hour and a half, sometimes even 2 hours. We'll find tutorials on YouTube. We come up with themes of the day. So Taco Tuesday and Sundays on Saturday. And we'll find pictures on YouTube and tutorials that we can do together. And every day we've been drawing. And not only has that become a mental break, a
Mhm.
way, but it's also become a way for us to bond even more closely. We now have this hobby together, which is pretty amazing. But again, it took stepping out of that. I have to have something structured all the time for them into you've
Mhm.
got this incredible ability right now to find a new hobby and explore things that you haven't done before. My
Yes.
oldest, excuse me, my oldest, is gung ho about learning Spanish. So what did we do? We downloaded all of these apps and products for her. And that's become her thing right now, is just improving her language skills. But it is an opportunity.
It's beautiful. It's so, and you stepping into that role and into
Hmm.
that power of allowing them to not be so structured, that shows them so much.
Yeah,
It's enriching their lives like we would never even think, and that we never had the time to do before.
true.
So I think it's beautiful. I told my daughter, I got her Skillshare, is skillshare.com. I'm not
Uh-huh.
affiliate or anything, but they're amazing because they've got classes that you can take. And I think you can get like 2 months for free right now or
Oh,
something.
wow.
And they were taking iPhone. Take your iPhone, learn how, I can't, which way, Tara, but learn how to take photos and edit them
Oh
from
my
your
gosh.
phone.
Yeah,
Become a photographer with no extra stuff needed. But that's the kind of thing that our kids are it's going to enrich their lives.
yeah.
And I'm in awe of how much and how fast they can catch on and they enjoy
It's
it,
true.
right?
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
Mm.
think that this is definitely unprecedented time
Mhm.
that none of us have ever been through this. But if we support each other and we reach out, um, and show one another support, love, and caring, and our kids, we can come out of this so much better than the crazy hustle bustle life that we had before.
Yeah.
And I'm just so happy to have you on the show, sharing your beautiful story and encouraging others to get past the fear, get
Mhm.
past it. On the other side, whether you know what's there or not, it's going to be okay.
Absolutely. And sometimes that simplest thing that we can do to get past it is find somebody, whether it's a confidant, whether it's a peer, whether it's a spouse, whether it's somebody who's a part of your tribe, and say, you know what, I'm
Mhm.
stuck and I don't know how to get past it. And having that vulnerability too, to say, I've got this fear and I don't know what to do next. And
Yep.
that's where, to me, that's where the beauty happened, is I just had to finally fess up and say, I don't know, and I'm afraid. And it
Yep.
happened.
And you made the decision to put
Yeah,
it out there.
I did.
So take that time, make a decision. find a confidant, a friend, or someone, or even a coach. I mean, there's
Yep.
so many coaches out there, depending on what you need. Find somebody who inspires you, who has done what you've done, and ask for help.
Yeah.
There's somebody out there willing to help you, willing to show you the ropes and care for you. And that is where we come together as a community. And I've just been so blessed to have so many amazing, amazing people in my life. And that's why, like, for you, I wanted you to be on the show because I want your story to be told. All the other people that I have for the interviews, it's because we all have a very unique, amazing story that even if it only touches one person, it's one more person who can start changing their perspective and stepping out of fear.
So true. So very true.
Well, do you have any last things that you would like to tell your listeners? Because I want them to be able to find you and follow you and get your book.
So I guess I'm always nervous doing a little bit of self-promotion, but you can find me on Facebook. It is my personal page on Facebook. But I also have an Instagram account, and that is, I believe, Rebecca Baybayan as well. I'm on LinkedIn, and my book is currently for sale on Amazon, both ebook and paperback. And again, it's titled "Why Not Broccoli?" And just why not broccoli? It's such a great thing.
Yes, I love broccoli. I really do, actually.
I do too.
But all of your links, everything is going to be in the show notes. So I'm going to make it super easy for people to be able to find you,
Awesome.
get your book on Amazon, follow all your pages, and support you. Anybody who has questions, I know that I'm always here. You can message me. I'm here to support you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Rebecca is too. We would love to hear from you. And just thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being amazing. And thank you to all the listeners watching. And I hope you all have a really amazing day. And I cannot wait to see you on the next one.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. This was wonderful. It was my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.